Here's another one about a young gal whose engagement went up in smoke after it got out about her past. You're going to see they're all set to be married and all that, and her guy started really asking her some serious questions about her past, and she decided to admit it to him, all sorts of things, which you'll find out in the story. And of course, because he's a conservative guy, not like that, nope, it's over. And of course, she's deeply upset about this and singing the blues. And once again, remind you guys that if you're meeting a gal for the first time you start dating, it's a good thing to inquire about these things early on. You don't want to be asking about them years into the relationship when you've built an attachment and spent years with this chick, because time is money. And of course, they're not going to reveal this, to volunteer this information. And all the gals out there that like watching my channel or may stumble upon this, whether you like me or not, it is in your interest to tell the guy. You may think I shouldn't tell the guy, but it's going to come out one way or another someday. Trust me on this. Oh, and gentlemen, again, if you are on X, formerly Twitter, come check me out. SSM Channels, that's the handle there. Come on over, help me trying to market the channels. We're all having a good time there. As you know, YouTube doesn't like to share my channel anymore, so if you guys can go over there and join and share, definitely help me out. Okay. So this is titled, I, a 25-year-old female, told my fiance, a 30-year-old male, some details about my S-word history. He took it badly and says I misled him early on and we separated. Well, she did mislead him. Says here, I've been with Zach for just over 2 years, and he asked me to marry him 3 months ago. I happily accepted, and everything seemed on track for us to be happy together for the long haul. But recently, things took a very bad turn, and I honestly don't know where we stand. Well, 2 years into the relationship, he's already asking her to get married. That's stupid. But then again, in this situation, hey, now he's learning. Not wasting any more time, but he should have asked her this early on. One night we were talking, and Zach said that if he were getting married, we should be completely open with each other and have no secrets. To him, that included talking about SEX, including kinks we might potentially be into, and SEX acts we might be into that we haven't tried yet, etc. Call me crazy, but after 2 years of dating, hooking up, and all that, I would imagine that those things would have come out in terms of like freaky shit you like to do in the bedroom and all that. And if she isn't voluntarily doing that with you, obviously she doesn't see you as a prize. You're just the guy to, marry. She says, I was on board with this discussion, but then he also wanted us to talk about our S-word history in detail. To be honest, this part made me a bit uncomfortable. Well, you shouldn't be uncomfortable if you were honest with him. But since you weren't honest with him and you hid things from him, therefore you're uncomfortable. We live in a somewhat conservative state, and I had a bad experience with a previous partner shaming me over my history. Okay, well, did you behave in a manner that warranted being shamed? However, I agree with Zach that we shouldn't have secrets and told him everything he wanted to know, including the number of people I was with. People? You mean not just dudes? And more non-standard acts I did. There's no way in God's green earth did she tell him everything. When I finished, the look on his face kind of cut deep, and it was a mixture of surprises and sadness. More like shock and disgust. But she just doesn't want to say that. The parts that he took issue with is that I've been with, wait for it, 30 guys in total, and I have done 2 threesomes with guys. Yeah, that's exactly what a guy who's getting married wants to hear about his soon-to-be wife. Being spit roasted between 2 dudes. And oh, by the way, 30 guys? Yeah. You might want to redo that number, honey, with her being so honest. Try probably multiply times 3. Zach's response was I did nothing wrong, except that he feels like I misrepresented who I was when we met, and that was his words. Well, I agree with Zach. He said he'd only been intimate with people he really liked and connected with, which is why his number was so much smaller, and said he felt like I was the same based on how I presented myself when we were dating. Well, she's putting on the show in her conservative state and conservative location. There you go. Since we were both getting a bit emotional, I gave him some space to process things and think things over myself. I try to see things from his side, but I don't see how I misrepresented anything. Well, then you're not thinking hard enough to see things from his side. And women and accountability. I don't see how I misrepresented anything. Bitch, you didn't tell him about your past. You really think he wanted to be with a girlfriend and marry a gal that would partake in threesomes? A dude on each side. And this is just, I'm sure there's things left out here. And 30 dudes. I think not. I know my number is a bit higher than average, but that's just a result of me being too busy for a relationship and singles for most of college. Too busy? Well, I don't know. It sounds like you were getting plenty busy to me. As a result, I had a bit of a hook-uppy period in my life, which I enjoyed at first, but also made me feel a bit used and unsatisfied. No shit. When you get the reputation real quick as being the girl that literally you could just, say hello to, and the next thing you know, she wants to spread them for you. Yeah, guys are going to be lining up to use you. That's how it works. So after college, I knew I wanted to be in a serious relationship, and that's when I met Zach. So it's not like I was tricking him by putting on some kind of persona. It was who I was. No, what's going on is during college, you were doing what the gals call the hoe phase. And then when you were done, then you're like, okay, I'm going to be a good girl now, and I'm going to find myself the good man to marry. Not the type of guy I would be involved with in college because I didn't have time for that. I was busy my hook-uppy period. So I'm going to find the good man, who I know has low numbers, who I know would appreciate me, as long as I don't mention what I've been up to, and live happily ever after. But until that man questions things. Now, I'll say this. At least she was revealing a bunch of these things here, but we know it's not the full truth. The problem is that since that conversation, he's acted like a different person. He says he needs a bit more time and space, and he's not rude to me or anything, but his cold politeness is just as hurtful. Well, imagine you found out some shocking shit. That might bother you too, sweetheart. I'm seriously worried that this could damage our relationship in a major way, and I'm not sure what to do. Does anyone have any advice about how to have a follow-up conversation, and I might try to reassure Zach about concerns he may have? What are you going to say to reassure him? Are you going to use like the fucking Jedi mind trick and just try to make him forget what happened or something? It's not going to work that way. You can't undo what was said. And we all know there's more things going on here. He does not want to marry someone like that. Period. It's one thing, guys, in my opinion. Not everybody shares this opinion, but my opinion is, it is one thing if, okay, she's 25, and let's just say she had 3 relationships before Zach. And she really loved the guy, and they slept together. Okay. She wasn't being having a hook-uppy period, as she said. It was guys that she was serious with. That's one thing. I can live with that. It's another thing if she's doing threesomes and too busy for relationships, so she's, her pussy's a revolving door. That's something different. Now on to her update here. Part 2. She says, first of all, I do want to thank those who took the time to read my original post and give advice. It was helpful to get different perspectives. A few users suggested that the situation may be more serious than I thought and could end up in a breakup, and unfortunately that ended up being the case. Well, we saw that coming a mile away. It's difficult to explain how things unraveled since I'm still trying to come to grips with the situation myself. But as I said in the last post, Zach became distant and after the initial conversation, and at first I just wanted to give him space. Well, he did the right thing by giving him space. Then he went on a short trip to a work site, and when he came back, we had another discussion. At that time, he said that he had thought about the situation nonstop, and that he's sorry, but that it would be best to call off the wedding and separate at least temporarily. It ain't temporarily. He's saying that to make you feel better. His reasoning was that although he tried as hard as possible to get past it, somehow he just can't look at me the same, as though I'm not the same person he's known all this time. Because you're not. Because he thought of you as a certain way. Now he sees you as something else. No guy wants that as their girlfriend or wife. And that's what so many of these gals cannot understand nowadays. They refuse because they don't want to be accountable. And they always say, well, guys will sleep with anything. Da, da, da. Yeah, but most guys aren't like this. Most guys aren't having threesomes with two chicks. Most guys don't have like a number of like 100 chicks. It doesn't work that way. And for women, they'll see that as social proof. That, oh man, all these girls want to sleep with like, my boyfriend in the past. Great, I won. I got that guy that all the gals wanted. But with the men, they don't want that girl that all the guys slept with. That's not a prize to them. Oh, hell no. And they don't get that. The part that really hurt is because it made me feel like some kind of fraud. When I was always consistent throughout our relationship, you're a fraud. Because you knew, come on, honey. You knew darn well he saw you in a certain way. You knew you were keeping those skeletons in the closet nice and quiet. He did apologize and said he realized it's his problem, but he doesn't want to get married unless he's 100% certain he wants to spend his life with that person. And right now, he can't be sure that person is me. No, he's 100% sure that person's not you. Zach is obviously a nice guy. I respect Zach in the sense that he's ending it with her, but he still can't quite say, no, I don't want to be with you. He has since moved into a small studio that he used to rent out. We initially said the separation would be temporary, but I'm not really holding out any hope. I don't really see how we can recover from this. Well, you can recover from it, he ain't going to recover. We were civil during the moving out stage, but I would be lying if I said I'm not extremely upset at the situation. Going between sadness and anger. It just all seems so needlessly pointless, like throwing a fresh cake into the trash. Because you haven't been harmed. He's the one that's been harmed, honey. We had a great relationship, but both invested in each other and bonded and got along so well. I have no doubt we could continue going on just as strong for decades to come. And then he chose to throw it all away because we were different people in our college years. So she has to put the blame on him. She's not taking any accountability here. It's his fault. He's throwing it away. You're not who he thought you were. End of story. And he has a right to end it because we all know darn well girls will certainly end relationships like that for far less. He has a right to end a story. So in the future, my lady, well, okay, bad choice of words, not a lady here, young gal, be upfront with, it doesn't have to be the first date when you're with the freaking Cheesecake Factory, but early on you need to let guys know about your past. Ideally, she'll be with a guy that was like her. Then no problems. But for a conservative guy, he doesn't want that, it's not going to work. And if you hide it from the next guy in the future, eventually he will find out. And it doesn't make a guy a villain for having certain standards and have certain things about the gals they get involved with. Because we all know darn well, gals certainly have a laundry list of criteria and things that guys have to meet to get their attention. So a guy is allowed to have certain things too. But this is a subject that comes up again and again and again. And I guarantee you're going to have a whole generation of women out there as they get older that have been wild and free and having their hoe phase that the feminists say they can all do, that are going to be alone because guys are going to see what they've been doing on social media, on TikTok and Instagram, flaunting their bodies when they're young. They'll maybe some OnlyFans situations or many other things that a lot of the young gals foolishly do nowadays that are going to screw things up for them. And they'll be whining on TikTok and social media or anything in the future that they can get attention from. But no guy wants them and blah, blah, blah by the foolish choices they made in their teens and 20s. So any gals that stumble upon this, think things through before you act because otherwise it's going to jeopardize the future. So there you go.